My sister and I both graduated high school at the same time, but my parents chose to reward her with a trip to Hawaii, leaving me at home. When they returned, they were stunned to find a $50,000 check made out to me. They went white as a sheet when I mentioned a certain visitor who stopped by during their absence, and now my sister is having a meltdown. So for context, a few weeks ago my sister and I graduated from high school, and in the fall, we'll be leaving for college. Alex is my twin sister, and I have to admit she's always been better than me academically. I've never really been one for books and have been more interested in sports. I bagged a football scholarship recently, and I think it's a pretty big deal, but my parents only cared about the fact that Alex was valedictorian. They took her to Hawaii to celebrate while I only received a card saying congratulations. Now they actually expect me to share the gift that I received from another member of the family with her because she's throwing tantrums. The day after we graduated, my parents asked her what she wanted as a gift, and they would get it for her because she had earned it. This conversation took place right in front of me, and they did not bother to ask me anything, which was not surprising because they had always been partial towards Alex. She thought about it for a few minutes and said that she wanted them to take her and a couple of her friends to Hawaii as a gift. My parents agreed instantly, and Alex went to her room to celebrate and tell her friends. While she was in her room, I asked my parents if I was going to go with them or not because I was honestly not sure. Usually, when we are on family vacations, they do take me with them, but since this was a gift for Alex, I wasn't sure if my presence was required or was going to be appreciated by Alex because she doesn't really like me much. I'm fine with that. I'm not really a fan of her either because, even though we are twins, she's very different from me. She's spoiled, arrogant, and mostly really disrespectful to everyone, and nobody who went to school with us likes her. It's just her gang of cronies who seem to think she's perfect, but I think it's just because they are just like her as well. Anyway, when I asked my parents if I would be coming along with them, they had to think about it for a while. I instantly knew that the answer would be no because if they had to think about it, it couldn't be because they're willing to take me with them. They had probably already decided against it and were just thinking of a way to tell me. After a few seconds, my mother spoke to me and said that since this was a gift for Alex, it would be unfair to take me with them because then it would just become a family vacation. I pointed out the obvious, that my parents were going along with her, but they said that they were only going with her because Alex wanted it, and they were pretty sure that she wouldn't want me. Even they were aware of the fact that we didn't really get along. After that was made clear to me, there was nothing more to say, so I went back to my room. I just felt bad for myself because, even though I have not achieved anything great academically, I think a football scholarship was worth a celebration as well. But my parents did not seem to care about me or my achievements, and on top of that, they were willing to leave me home alone for the entire week while they were gone and Alex would get to celebrate with her friends in Hawaii. I was miserable for one full day until I realized that my family being gone for 1 week would mean that I would have the house to myself and could do whatever I wanted. So that made me feel a little less upset, and I decided I was going to make the best of the situation. While they were preparing for the trip, it felt like everyone had completely forgotten about me, and that was not a feeling that I was exactly used to, but it really stung. On the day that they were leaving, my parents told me to take good care of the house, and at least they said goodbye to me, but my sister did not even glance at me and just laughed. None of this was surprising behavior coming from her, so you guys can imagine how bad my relationship with her is. For the first couple of days, I just invited my friends over, and we played video games, had a bunch of junk food, and just did whatever we felt like right from the morning until the evening when they had to go home. This was my plan for every day. On the final day, I was going to call my friends and tell them that they were free to come over that day as well, but at around 8 o'clock in the morning, I heard the doorbell ringing, and it was way too early for my friends to show up. I hadn't woken up properly yet either because I had been sleeping in late ever since I graduated from high school. So when I went downstairs and looked outside the window to see who it was, I was kind of shocked to see my mother standing there. It took me a few minutes to remind myself that my mother was not here, she was with the rest of the family in Hawaii, and this must be somebody else. Then I noticed a couple of differences as well. This woman who was standing outside the door was much taller than my mother. She also looked kind of younger, and she had blonde highlights in her hair, and my mom hated that. So I was able to gather that this was definitely not my mom, but someone who looked weirdly similar to her. I decided to open the door after contemplating it for a bit because if she looked similar to my mother, it meant that she must be a relative of some sort. When I opened the door, she introduced herself as my mom's cousin and said that she had been living in the UK for the past 20 years, so I had probably never seen her before. From what I knew, my mother did not have any siblings, and she was an only child. This woman looked like she was just a couple of years younger than my mother, so I had guessed already that she must have been a cousin. But for a cousin to look that similar to my mom, it was just weird, and I definitely hadn't ever heard of my mom talking about some cousin from the UK. But then again, I don't really speak to my mother that often anyway. I invited her in, but I made sure to tell her that my parents were not home because I was certain that she had come to see them and not me. To my surprise, she told me that that was fine because she hadn't come to see them. She had actually come to see me and my sister. That was another shock for me because I couldn't imagine what she wanted to do with me and my sister. But anyway, I had to tell her that I was the only person who was home when my sister was away. She seemed a bit upset when I said that and asked me where the rest of them were. So I decided to be honest with her because her face just seemed like she could be trusted, and I told her the truth. Like most other people, she was also shocked when she found out that my family had left me back home alone and had taken a trip to Hawaii with my sister to celebrate her high school graduation, even though I had also graduated at the same time. I kind of tried to downplay how terrible I had felt because I didn't want to make it seem like I was complaining to her since I didn't want my mother to yell at me for spilling the beans about our family to her cousin when they came back. She told me how sorry she was and said that she could understand how I felt, so she wanted to give me a gift. Then she took out her checkbook from her purse and wrote me a check but asked me to fill in the amount. This was the first time that anything like this had ever happened, and I was shocked. So I told her that I couldn't let her do that because I just couldn't accept money from her. We went back and forth on that for a couple of minutes, and then she just said that she was going to fill in the amount that she wanted to give me and wrote me a check for $50,000. I insisted that I couldn't accept that from her because it was a huge amount, something that I couldn't even imagine, but she told me that she just wasn't going to hear it and I had to accept it.